Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lisa Dakanay, and I'm the president of the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, and I will be the host for today's webinar. Welcome to the 8th webinar of our COVID-19 Social Enterprise Response and Visioning Effort webinar series. There are two objectives of this webinar. The first is for us to share, collaborate, and learn from each other about social enterprise responses, as well as the responses of social enterprise resource institutions to COVID-19. And the objective being to collaborate and a network for us to develop a responsive COVID-19 served recovery program for social enterprises. The second objective is to actually reconfigure what we call social entrepreneurship SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, acceleration platforms. Just to give a background for that a bit, before the COVID-19 pandemic, the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, that's organizing this webinar, was about to launch with the UN SCAP, the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, a set of platforms that we call social entrepreneurship SDG acceleration platforms. The reason for these platforms was the recognition that in the UN system, they were already evaluating that the Sustainable Development Goals of zero poverty, reduced inequality, and sustainability were not going to be achieved by 2030 at the rate that governments and other stakeholders in the region were going at the time. And they were looking around for actors or stakeholders who could help accelerate the achievement of these goals, and they saw that social enterprises had a big potential to do so. So the collaboration between the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia and UNSCAP was to hold a conference that would present and launch social entrepreneurship platforms that would accelerate the SDGs. And with COVID-19, we are now needing to assess the impact of COVID-19 on social enterprises, and how social enterprises as well as resource institutions assisting social enterprises are responding to the crisis, so that we could actually reposition social enterprises effectively to become transformational partners of the poor in their recovery process, as well as work with the poor to end the marginalized, accelerate the SDGs. Asia, that works in 10 countries, Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Thailand. And today, we are featuring Hong Kong. Our webinar this afternoon is entitled Finding the Light During COVID-19. And we're lucky to have with us Howard Ling, a serial social entrepreneur who is also a mentor of social entrepreneurs. And when I was chatting with him yesterday, I found out he's also a bridging leader, because he's been responsible for bridging government, corporate, and social sectors in Hong Kong to actually work together to build an enabling ecosystem for social enterprises in Hong Kong. So, but also with us this afternoon would be Professor Albert Teo, my longtime friend in social entrepreneurship. We've been doing social enterprise entrepreneurship research and teaching for a long time, from the time that he was in the National University of Singapore to the time now that he's with Tung Wah College in Hong Kong. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce to you our moderator for this afternoon, who will then introduce Howard, and also Eddie Rong, one of Howard's mentees, to actually take over the moderation of this webinar this afternoon. Albert, please take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. I always acknowledge Lisa as a guru, because back in 2006, I was very new to social entrepreneurship, and I attended a conference that she organized at the Asian Institute of Management in Manila. Okay, and so it's also my pleasure today to introduce one of the main speakers, to introduce the main speaker, Howard, whom I have known, I think, for 13 years. So as Lisa has mentioned, Howard is a serial social entrepreneur. For more than a decade, he has actually set up and incubated many social enterprises in Hong Kong. He is also a prominent figure in the social enterprise ecosystem in Hong Kong. So he sits on various committees. He also serves as an advisor to various organizations that promote social entrepreneurship. And as Lisa mentioned, he's a connector, or if you like it, an intermediary or a bridging leader, basically somebody who connects social entrepreneurs to other stakeholders and then helping the social entrepreneurs to leverage the resources that these stakeholders bring to the table. And he therefore is a very strong proponent of cross-sector social partnerships or collaborations, bringing the people sector, the public sector, and the private sector together to solve social problems. And Lisa also mentioned that Howard is a mentor. He has been a mentor to various young social entrepreneurs in Hong Kong. And that is why I'm also very excited to introduce a special guest speaker for today. That is Eddie Rong. So Eddie is one of Howard's mentees, and Eddie co-founded an award-winning fintech social enterprise a few years ago. Okay, so maybe I would share with you briefly the proceedings for this afternoon. First, we will invite Howard and Eddie to talk about the social enterprises that they are involved in. So Howard will be talking about Bijas, Cook One Cook, Chappie Technology, and Dr. Mask. And then Eddie will be talking about the fintech social enterprise called Hey Coins. So they will be sharing maybe also the experience coping with COVID-19 and also how they have responded to the pandemic. Then after that, I will take the discussion to a slightly different direction. So I will invite Howard to share his experience in promoting cross-sector partnerships and collaborations. Also, his experience as a connector, intermediary, and bridging leader. And also, I will get both Howard and Eddie to share their insights on mentorship in the social enterprise ecosystem. So Howard coming in as a mentor and as one of Howard's mentees. So maybe without further ado, let me hand over the floor to Howard. Howard, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. You hear me well? Okay. So once again, I would like to thank Lisa and Albert, my longtime friends, for inviting me to the webinar. And it's my honor and pleasure to share my experience in this critical period, and also it's my great happiness and honor to have Eddie Rong, that has come along with the social entrepreneurship journey in Hong Kong and in China and in Singapore. And actually later on, Eddie Rong will share his fintech business in different places. So first of all, I would like to give you all a little bit background of where I'm from, and then I will start sharing my PowerPoint. I prepared a few slides just to show what those social enterprises are and how I get into the field and how do I manage them. And of course, I will leave more time for the participant to ask questions at the end and after the presentations of me and Eddie. And then we can do a chit chat with the chat box. And I look forward to a more interactive exchange of thoughts and ideas from then on. Again, it's my great privilege to share my experience in this platform. I'm sure that knowledge sharing and skills and technique and technology, all this sharing is very important to the growth and to the development of the social entrepreneurship sector. As Albert said, back to 13 to 14 years ago, when we first met in Singapore, that is the goal of our visit, and that's the goal of our friendship. Is based on unconditional sharing of the knowledge and know-how. So without further ado, let me go to my PowerPoint so that we can be on the same page and see some of my work in Hong Kong. And so here you go. Let me get to the full screen. So do you see it? Okay. So that's good. So I first of all, I put up a very interesting photo that, of today I have my mentee, Eddie Wong. I also have my mentor. My mentor in Hong Kong is Mr. Yang, CK Yang, who is the Toys, who is the vice chairman of the Toys Association in Hong Kong. And this is the photo that he took in Macau in the 1950s. So back in those good old times, he took that photo with one person walking up the street, and Macau is full of Portuguese culture, and you can see the light. And when Lisa told me about the topic, finding the light during the COVID-19, so this photo immediately came to my mind. And later on, I will use this photo also as a concluding statement of some thoughts or ideas that I can relay that photo to the development of social entrepreneurship. Actually, when I first started the social enterprise in Hong Kong, I started two different social enterprises. The first social enterprise I started, of course, is my own enterprise that I put social objective in my business. So I call it as a dual objectives. I have to meet the P&L to be sustainable, and then I have to create the social objective at the same time. But the second vehicle that I created at that time, or I would say co-founded with the Hong Kong Council of Social Service, is by the invitations of HSBC and HKCSS, which is the Hong Kong Council of Social Service in Hong Kong. It's an umbrella organization for non-profit organizations in Hong Kong that covers around 85% of social service. And that organization represents a social sector. And then, of course, HSBC represent the banking sector and the business sector. And that was the time back to like 13 years ago when we had a financial crisis and the economic downturn. And at that time, there are 50 to 60 social enterprises in Hong Kong, which were hard hit by the situation, somewhat similar to the COVID situation nowadays. And then both business sectors and the social sectors are very much worried about the prospect of the social enterprises in Hong Kong. So that was the time that they have the idea of funding and starting a center called Social Enterprise Business Center. The objective of this center is to consult and help social enterprises in the market and to enhance their sustainability and competitiveness. And that time that we have around 50 to 60 social enterprises. So I joined Hong Kong Council of Social Service as the head of the center at that time. And that was when I met Albert to share also our idea of doing this platform center to assist social enterprises. So I create both vehicles. I would say that it's two different natures. One is more on a personal basis that I have to manage it by myself and by my managers. And then the other one that I have to work with so many different organizations. As Lisa mentioned, I also need to work with the government because lots of the, at that time, almost 95% of the social enterprises are funded by the government. And then I have to work closely with the government to discuss about how this funding schemes can help social enterprises of different backgrounds and objectives. And then at the same time, I have to go to the business sectors to talk to the I call them as a knowledge volunteers, and later on I give them the name called social angels, as business angels invested money, and then a social angel invest times, knowledge, and know-how. So I go to actually different business sectors to ask them to become my knowledge volunteers to help social enterprises to enhance the businesses. So 13 years from now, I'm glad to report to everyone that in Hong Kong, we have around 650 social enterprises now. And then almost like 70% of them are funded by the government. Another 30% are either funded by the private equity, private companies, or family foundations or philanthropies. So we see a good mix of different funders joining the sector. So why this photo makes sense to me at the very first slide for this sharing and the presentation, because in the social entrepreneurship journey, sometimes you will feel a little bit alone, just like this person, one person maybe walking back home, leading a directions by the street light. Somehow, whether this street light is for the street or for the home, we don't know. So because the direction is not clear, but you have to be very determined and you have to be very clear about what you want to do, and just take up, to pull yourself together to do it. So that's the reasons why I choose this photo, and I hope that the next slide that I'm going to share will tell you more about my some of my social enterprises that I started. So because of these two businesses that I have, and then later on, I slowly grow my enterprises into different directions. So in these slides, you can see that these are all the different social enterprises I either funded by myself, incubated, or consulted along the way. So you can see that we vary from a Chinese opera culture social enterprise to an angel child bakery, which hires the autistic, and then the Bijas that we started the restaurants which we hires the hearing impaired and train them to be professional chef and professional service people. And then we also have the animation social enterprise. We also have the social enterprise for the public speaking and sharings. And then because of COVID-19, I also started a mass production line in Hong Kong with the ethnic minorities and the disabled. And then I also have one social enterprises related to musicians, how we can engage the youth earlier in the music career, when the music career seems to have difficulties, seems to experience difficulties. How can we make a living out of this music career and engage youth at risk to do certain businesses by themselves? Of course, we also have social enterprises related to newborn that we give, we train the stay-home moms who are very professionals in taking care of children, using their strengths and to become a social enterprise that will help. We call that as a doula service to help the father and the mother for the first month of the birth for those newborn babies. So this is more like a snapshot of some of the social enterprises that I did. So if you are interested, these PowerPoint presentations can be shared after the presentations, and then you can just Google those names and you will find more background of this. So I highlighted 4 different social enterprises for today's discussions, just to be more related to what we do and how we respond to the COVID-19, because different social enterprises responded to the COVID-19 differently. And I find and try to identify 4 different social enterprises, which to me, I think they are quite creative in responding to the COVID. And the first social enterprises that I would like to share is Cook One Cook. By the name of this, you can already know that it's about cooking, but it's not a restaurant. So this is a platform to share recipes. And this is a platform to help stay-home moms to have additional income revenues we share advertising revenues by their recipes with the high ratings. And we also do online marketing for different brands, such as Maggi sauce, some brands for the cookingware. And then we also connect customers and producers together, because there are people who want to sell different food items, and we use this platform to connect them. Looking at the demographics of this Cook and Cook platform, we started this Cook and Cook 6 years ago with two young people, just the same, more or less the same age as Eddie when I first met them. So actually, I asked them whether they are very good at cooking, and they said no. So I said, then why you have such a good idea? And they share a very interesting story with me by saying that whenever they go home for dinner or for lunch, whenever they praise their moms or grandmas for their cooking, they will usually have the same dishes for almost a week, because of their compliment. So they were surprised by the power of compliment and the sharing of recipes. So why not they extend that power of compliment online, well, with more moms and with more chefs and both fathers and mothers who like to cook. So you can see that the gender difference is quite interesting according to our statistic. Up to now, we have around 0.8 million fans under this portal. Out of this 0.8 million fans, 81% of them are female, 19% of them are male. So almost like a 80-20 rules. And then in terms of the age of sharing, so it's quite healthy with 30% of more like cooking moms age, and also younger generations are more getting interested into cooking. So how this Cook and Cook responded to COVID-19 is a story that before the pandemic hits Hong Kong, this online platform is doing okay. I would say not very, very well. It's sustainable, but it's not highly profitable. But they are able to share the both revenues and the incomes with the recipe sharers in the platform. But because of the COVID-19, lots of people stay home and they could not go out and eat. And so they end up going to our platform and asking questions about how they can get these raw material, how they can get these sources. So they are quite passive at the very beginning by responding to the fans and to the customers asking for additional things related to cooking. But because of this persistence and because of this constant inquiry, finally they contacted different suppliers and used this platform to deliver food and services to them. So so this platform ended up having additional income due to this COVID-19, and at the same time, that demand inspired Cook and Cook to develop their own label food, which is more like a semi-cooked raw materials, so that people who receive semi-cooked materials at home, they don't need to spend like 2 hours to prepare the dinner. They may just need 1 hour or 1 hour less to prepare this. So I would say they are not quite actually they have more opportunities to develop a new additional income out of that. So if you look at, I do an interesting SWOT analysis just to look at their strength, because this SWOT actually happens to help me a lot whenever I consult social enterprises of different natures, even though it's a very simple marketing tool that, every schools, every university is teaching, but even though it's very old tool of marketing, but it's quite helpful because it helps you to identify what their strengths are and their weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. So in the case of Cook and Cook, you can see that their strengths are good at social media, good tractions, and data analytics. At the same time, they have a weakness in supply chain, logistics, because they are not we have threats from competitors doing similar things. And then opportunities, of course, is the online marketing, promoting brand opportunities, and the crossover selling opportunities. So looking at this analysis, you can see how we have to, and my role is to consult Coke on how they can turn the weaknesses into strengths by finding a more strong and reliable supplier, and rather than sitting rather than sitting in front of the computer and talking to the people who come to share the recipe, actually they go out and meet these suppliers and to tell them the plan, tell them the analytics, tell them our demographics and the demand. And so finally they are able to work out their own label food, and they can further develop, to turn that weaknesses into strength by having a very good collaborations with different suppliers now. And I think towards the threats, of course, we also have threats from other similar sharing recipe platforms. But one thing that Cook did was quite impressive is the connections with the fans. They organize gathering, not just online and actually offline gatherings with the fans and with the recipe sharing moms 2 times, sometimes 1 time a year, that they are able to meet them face to face, and they will share about how they use the website, what they like most and what they don't like most, whether the advertisement are too much, or whether the advertisement somehow blocking their way of browsing the website. So they have all these kinds of, we call as a market intelligence, to make the business grow much healthier. So this is the story of Cook. And then moving towards another business that I do is Chappie Tech. Chappie Technology and SI Education, I call it as a social intelligence. So if you look at this, is lots of people are talking about artificial intelligence nowadays, and I think social enterprise should not miss that big trend, technological trend, when people are talking about 5G and AI. And I ask myself, what social enterprise can do to respond to this technological change? And my question is, and my answer to this question is to create a term called SI, versus AI, and that stands for social intelligence. So what do I mean by social intelligence? Because if you talk to these students, if you go to school to sell them artificial intelligence educations, it just sounds cool, but there's no substance, there's no content. You may just sell them about the coding, teach kids about how to make AI programming, Python, things like that. But at the end of the day, I asked those suppliers, I said, so apart from those technological tools or technological programming or skill that you are able to pass on to the students, what else can you pass on to them? So usually the answer is just technology, just convenience, and I said, that's not enough, because these students should use technology to help people to solve day-to-day problems. So if we don't have the problems on hand, there's no substance for the technology to develop further. So I started to look at all of my social enterprise experiences in terms of how we develop businesses with different underprivileged groups in Hong Kong. I find there's lots of social intelligence there. So I started to talk to them. For example, in this slide, you can see that the students are standing in front of this bed. Actually, this bed is meant to help the disabled and the elderly to control the bed, the movement of the bed, and also to control the messaging to the nurses through a voice recognition system. So how did this student get to this idea? First of all, we don't just teach them AI at the very beginning. We teach them SI. We bring them to the elderly home, to the nursing homes, to meet the people living there, talk to the nurses, talk to the supervisor, talk to the user, and then they will be able to know their pain points. And after getting these ideas, and they come back to the classroom and discuss this idea with the teachers and classmates. And at the end of the day, the question is how we can solve this and make this a better or more convenient solution through AI. So SI comes before AI, and AI should be able to assist these kinds of SI discoveries. So, and then, of course, we also have a short video to talk about, what AI is about. And sometimes, when I do social enterprise sharing, I got to tell people about, what exactly AI is. And I sometimes use this video to show to the student to get their interest at least, and to tell them, what are the applications. But if you look at this video at later on in your computer, you can see that it's just a 3 to 4 minutes video, but it shows maybe not all of the ideas in the videos are really happening. Some of them are still under development, but at least this will arouse young people interest in understanding why technology is important in their work, or no matter which area of study that they are going to do. So again, now back to my third business. It's about Dr. Mask. So I started this actually in January, just 5 to 6 months ago, with a group of investors who very much wanted to help Hong Kong at that time, because we are facing the shortage of masks. But I'm happy to say to everyone that, up to now, we are not short of masks. We are having too many masks in the market at the moment. So I always say that it's very interesting. Hong Kong moved from having 0 production line of masks in January to 55 production mask lines now in Hong Kong. So in just 5 months' time, we have 55 production lines in Hong Kong. So you can say that we respond to that situation very fast. But again, the demand and supply is an issue. So at that time, we started that business for 2 reasons. Again, it's a dual objective. First, we have to achieve the self-finance. We have to calculate how much we invested, how much we will get back from selling the mask, and what are the social enterprise mode that we are able to do. First, we already identified ethnic minority and the elderly as the 2 major groups that we are about to hire. And then the capacity, the production space, and how do we collaborate with schools, NGOs, and social enterprises at that moment. And then we have to get professionals to getting the clean room, and how do we manage this business along the way. And for this particular business, something that I would like to share is how we must, I would say, respond to this situation of COVID, at the same time that we have to manage this kind of demand, the imbalance of demand and supply. Started with having no masks at that moment. One thing that we did that was very interesting is about perception. When everyone talks about masks in Hong Kong, the price has gone up to 5 Hong Kong dollar per mask, or even up to $7 per mask. That means more like $1 US per mask. That is the craziest time of the mask between January and February. And then all of a sudden, there are so many mass production schemes supported by the government. And the government said that they are going to buy masks from the production lines at $3 Hong Kong dollar. That is almost like 50 cents of US for the mask. So all of a sudden, there's so many applicants, so many businesses applying for the grant, because the government will subsidize 3 million Hong Kongs to help these production lines. But the problem with that, I mean, there's good side, there's advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantages is that people started to develop a perception that masks should be priced at $3 per mask. And to me, this is still quite expensive, because masks, I mean, without this pandemic, is around $1 less, or at least 50 cents Hong Kong per mask. So $3 is still like 6 times as much, 5 times as much. So what my social enterprise production line has done at the very beginning when we first announced our operations, even though I don't produce any mass in the market, that was the time that we just announced that we will do this mass social enterprise line in Hong Kong. I said to the public that I'm going to price my mass as 2.4 Hong Kong dollars. So all of a sudden, I got so many orders everywhere from NGOs and social enterprises and all those big corporate accounts, because they thought this guy is crazy, right? Because people are selling at $3 and you're selling that at 2.4 cents. But what is good about this pricing strategy is that after our announcement, not all, or at least 70% of the mass lines available in the market are not there to charge more than $3. Because if they charge more than $3, they will look stupid, right? Because people are charging between 2.4 to 2.5, 2.6. So even though I don't produce any mass in the market, I'm able to control the price between 2.4 to 2.8, so that people started to get more attention about the average pricing of mass. And even until now, at my new pricing strategies for the mass available in July and August, I'm telling people that I'm selling the mass at 2.1 or even at $2. The reasons for this pricing strategy and the idea of managing social enterprise business is that you have to respond to this economic trend and social trend at the same time, and you have to strike the balance. Of course, we cannot sell it at loss, right? Because after all, social enterprise is still a business. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, what are the objectives of setting up this line? If your objective of setting up this line is profit maximization, so I can just sell the mass at $5 or $6 at peak, so that I can reap the profit and go, right? So the idea of having this production line, lots of people asking me, why I do this and why I do that. I said, I'm not just doing this in response to the COVID-19. I'm seeing this production line not as a mass production line. I'm seeing this as an area that I have the clean room, training ethnic minority, training the elderly to be professional healthcare service or product user or product ambassador under this clean room, because the whole idea of this mass production is all about clean room, that you are able to do a pharmaceutical product or cosmetic product or some other product in the future. So it just happens that we can make mass now, but what happens if there's no such demand? So we can still change our strategy to meet these other demands in the market. And I'm glad to see that, now I have a 70% of my workforce made of ethnic minorities and the elderly and in Hong Kong. And I can see their growth in the past 5 months from having no experience now to very experienced workers in this healthcare industry. And last but not least, I would like to share this company is called Bijas. Bijas is a restaurant that I first started in Shenzhen and then in Hong Kong, in the University of Hong Kong. And, in Hong Kong, it's interesting. We have 9 different universities, and we have so many restaurants in these universities, and none of them is vegetarian. So when I first saw these situations in the university system in Hong Kong, I said to myself, that must be something wrong, right? So we have so many students who are vegetarian because of religions, because of their culture, because of their upbringing. So why we don't have at least one vegetarian restaurant there? And university is such a good setting that you can also disseminate the idea of social entrepreneurship. So I talked to the University of Hong Kong in one occasions. That was almost like 7 years ago. So that was when I started a Bijas vegetarian restaurant there with the team of hearing impairment, people with autism, and then people with psychiatric problems. So this is the first social enterprise I tried to mix 3 different groups together and to work towards one business. As you can see from this picture, they are coming from different backgrounds. They are different disability, but when they come to work, you only see their abilities and their strengths. For example, the hearing impaired staff are mainly responsible for the surfacing. The autism staff are mainly responsible for the back kitchen support. And then the psychiatric patients, the rehabs, are mainly responsible for the bartender service, making coffees and tea. So they have a very good divisions of labor. What I would like to share is that one restaurant is more like a process. So if you can split the process into different segments, I call this as the right environment with the right people, then you are able to have the right impact on both the business and the people who are engaged in the process. So I guess this is a good example both for the University of Hong Kong and also for me. And I'm glad to share with everyone that, ever since we started this business 6 years ago, we received numerous awards about employees engagement, green living, because we are doing vegetarian, and we also adopt a zero waste policy that we retain the food waste and then put it up to the rooftop gardens and to further turn them into fertilizer and grow the herbs that we use for the restaurants. So it's a more like a educations and the catering at the same time. And I think in these 6 years of our business in Hong Kong U, we have generated over 30 to 35 researchers due to the requests from the students. When they come over to eat, they will interview my staff, they will interview my managers. So we become a research center for both social science and business faculty, because they will find our business model interesting, and then we become the subject of their researches. So and another sharing that I would like to do, of course, this is nothing to do with my social enterprise. Before I pass over to Eddie, and then Eddie can share his social enterprises. This is one of the brands I like very much. It's by John Yokoyama, and that is the world famous fish market in Pike Place, Seattle. And of course, the founder, Joe Yokoyama, is already retired. And when he retired, he announced a very, very good exit strategy, passing on the business to these 4 young people who started the fish business with him since they were kids. And this is the philosophy that I believe very much in my business. I sometimes don't call my business a social enterprise. I just call my business as business, because when you love your employees and they love you back, and he said, and that's the movement he wants to see the whole world comes to. And that is his goal, and that's also my goal. So I guess that's very much the part of the sharing that I would like to do. Why I use this photo as a concluding slide for my sharing, because when you look at this, I always have a question of, when we talk about the light of the COVID-19, again, my question to everyone is, who discover, or who is the first person to put the street light on the street, right? When the light bulb is first invented to light up the indoor. So who is the first, who bothers to put the first light bulb outside? Just like this photo, right? Back in the 1950s in Macau, there's only one light bulb to light up the whole street. But when people walk by and seeing this photo, or just walking by, and they will have an idea of, oh, this is such a good idea, right? So just one light bulb can light up the whole street, and it helps people to go home safely, and to give people directions, and at least to know where they are going. But when people talk about this idea back in their home countries, they can easily replicate the same kindness in action, that they can just do one simple thing to put the light out of your home, and you will light up the whole street. But if you lock on this door and ask the people who put the light bulb out of the street, and ask them why you put the light bulb out of the street, because you want to light up the whole street, their answer may be no. The answer may be just say, I just put up the light for my family members who will recognize the door for their easy coming home and safely and efficiently. So the kindness in action may start as home, but actually it helps others along the way. So my idea of social entrepreneurship and the belief that I have is always back to this street light idea. I always say that you chop your own wood and it will warm you twice. So I guess that's the idea of social entrepreneurship in my context. So I better stop it here because I've been going nonstop for so many minutes before you fall asleep. So let's pass on to my favorite social enterprise, Haycons, and my most respected social entrepreneur, Eddie. It's difficult for me. Sometimes I call him mentee just because I am older than him, right? But to me, it's always a mutual learning. You know, I learn a lot also from his business in financial technology. So Eddie, now the floor to you. High five.
All right, sure, no problem.
Okay. I will let you share the screen now. Okay.
All right, sure. Wow, it's a lot of people. Can you guys hear me?
Okay, yeah, very well.
Okay, sure. Hello, my name is Eddie. Sorry, I'm wearing a mask because I'm still in the office right now. You know, Hong Kong has just the COVID-19 stuff has just been banned spike. There's a lot of cases being confirmed these days. People are so nervous, but you know, this is what it is, and I think it works for anywhere in the planet. We're just human beings. We're facing a lot of challenges every day. So what we can do is just to get used to the new. There's a lot of things going on about my own businesses, about my personal development stuff as well. And just before I started sharing, actually, how many minutes I have? Sorry, I can't hear you, Howard.
You have 20 minutes, 20 minutes.
All right, I will keep it short and sweet because sometimes I talk too much. Yeah, so actually I knew Howard for, I think approximately 5 years, 6 years from now. Actually, I was made in China, and I moved to Hong Kong 10 years ago and started my college here. I was graduated from the Ling University, which is the only liberal arts university in Hong Kong, probably in Asia as well. And in my university, it taught me a lot about caring, sharing, as well as social responsibility. That's why I always think whatever I do, the economy return or the numbers return or financial return, it doesn't mean everything. So whatever I do, I would like to create impact that can create a social benefit to the entire society. Maybe not even a big place or just small place. I wish my own contributions can make a difference to what I'm working on. Yeah, and then so once I graduated at 2015, I started my own business. A lot of people ask me why you started your own business. I said because I cannot find a job. That is the reality, because I tried a lot of job seeking for a while. I had few offers, but the offers really not very interesting, and it's kind of boring. It's like a 9-5 jobs always. I hate that. I feel I tried 1 month and I just quit it because I just can't stand for the environment and stuff. And then I started thinking about my life, what things should I work on? And then starting a day, I have an idea that comes from a daily life, which is I was sitting in my dormitory. I was going out to buy a takeout lunch, right? And then I realized I don't have money. And then I just come back to sit around my apartment. I found a jar of coins. That's actually a lot of coins, and it's pretty heavy. And but I'm thinking, how could I carry out with a lot of coins and a lot of pennies inside? Whether people are really going to accept it or not, I'm kind of questioning. But eventually, I still took the coins out, and I went to the grocery shop, and when they see the jar of coins, they say, no, I cannot accept it. You better go to the bank to exchange to notes. Then I accept it. All right, I said fine. And I bring a jar of coins, probably I think it's 10 kg something. I carry it along in the summer days and I go to the banks. And when I reach in the bank and I lie in the queue and I reach the counter and the counter tell me, hey, you know what? I'm gonna count every pennies in front of you. And I say, wow, you are so efficient. And then I spent like 3 hours standing on the bank. Everybody is complaining, why are you taking so much time and blah, blah, blah. I don't have other choice. So suddenly I think I ring a bell and say, hey, what else can I choose? What other options can I have? So is there any solutions to solve all of the coins problem, right? So a lot of people have coins in their offices, in their homes, even their, even on streets, a lot of those coins is being missed. And for me, I searched around, I checked Google, I did a little bit of research, but there's no other solutions in Hong Kong that can solve this problem. And I was telling my partners and say, hey, whether can we do something about it? And then we just say, hey, maybe we should have kind of invented something to cut all the coins and maybe transferring all the physical money to the digital money, because where I grew up in China, things being really cashless. There's WeChat Pay, there's the Alipay, the Union Pay, whatever pay you have. So probably people don't carry cash anymore today. And then so it's created a lot of problem for me for carrying the cash and the coins. So our mission is say, hey, whether can we digitalize all the cash and to help the people understand firstly how important it is to be more financially educated, because you have lots of coins, right? And which is value a lot of money. And second, for don't afraid of technology. Come on, this 21st century, right? So a lot of people are worried about, can I use e-wallet, can I use credit card? A lot of yes and no's, right? Because people are scared about getting new things to use it, and they're keeping traditional stuff. But things has been moved on, right? So that's we want to have the sort of education on the technology, particularly on the financial technology. And then so that's a true objective. Third of all is we're trying to do something socially benefit, because coins has a lot of uniqueness about the value and history, as well as when the people think about coins, right? People think about the donations. So naturally, we want to say, hey, instead of just converting all the money to the money, whether can we help the people or help the charities, have the NGOs to do more fundraising in the people, the ways that they don't impact their daily life. Coins won't influence anything, right? If you don't use coins, you will not lose anything, right? It's just a pennies in your life, but it's a lot of coins, a lot of money. And then so we started thinking about this process. And back then, I know nothing about technology. And me and my partners, we spent like 3 months in Shenzhen. And within there, we go there and check out every factory doors. Because we want to have a machine, like a kiosk, when people can dump all the coins in, and they can, the machine itself can count all the coins for the people. And then you can just select what you want to do with the value of coins, right? And then we spend there for 3 months, and we eventually build our prototype. But the prototype is really sucks. It doesn't work at all. And then so we start thinking about the process, how we can raise money, how can we get more knowledge about product, how can team up, a lot of questions coming up. And then there's a lot of story behind the scene, but I think I don't have much time. I will just skip it. But talk about the consequence of so we built the machines and built all the pieces from scratch. And till the last year before the social unrest in Hong Kong, we have 50 kiosks in Hong Kong. We're allocating MTR stations, residential areas, schools, and we have to converting over 30 million Hong Kong dollars since the day one we're doing the project until today. until the middle of last year. And then we're very proud of what we do, actually, and we help the people to probably get rid of the cash. So we always call ourselves as the last mile of cash solutions. And when people are using our machines, they don't have coins anymore, and then it becomes more like digitally savvy. Surprisingly, a lot of people think will be a lot of young people are using our technology, right? And because fintech, e-wallet stuff, people don't know, right? In terms of our users are pretty evenly distributed. We have people over 60, 70. We have people like less than 13 years old. Yeah, it's a pretty like a variety of range. That's the beauty of coins. You can reach to every single of the people. You can talk to people by the coins. So always treat coins is like, hey, you're my friend, but I don't like you. And so you can leverage the value of coins and the special uniqueness of coins. And also it brings a lot of social impact as well, because once we help to generating the donations as well, approximately 10% of our converted coins, which is 30 millions, all goes to the charities over the years. So it's pretty probably it's a lot of money as well. And I think we have reached 35 NGOs back then. But talking about the changes, right? So the reason why I talk about the middle of last year, because we pretty much stopped operation middle of last year. Because last year we have social unrest in Hong Kong, and our kiosks pretty much are located in the very high density areas where protests going, all the police is fighting back. So our machine got smashed, and a lot of fires, a lot of waters. So we're pretty damaged, and we don't have the income, we don't have the generating sales, because our revenue actually come from the transactions of the when you dump into the money, and then we deduct the service charge, and we sort of get a cut from the service charge, which is probably 10%. But since we don't have the coins dump into the insert of the coin machines, so we don't have the incomes anymore. So we start thinking what we can do. We just have a few employees, and together with our founders, what are we gonna do? We pretty have no idea, because we are young. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what to do. So we start thinking anything we can change. And we found it's very interesting. We have 58,000 users, and most of the users actually they have our own loyalty points. Because how you gonna donate or your money, or how you gonna, because one of the functionality on our machines, you can put into the money and exchange to the Hey Coins reward points. Okay, and then the Hey Coins reward points, what you're gonna do is to donate to charity, and you can also redeem product services or vouchers, like Starbucks, coupons, a lot of things. So of course, if you don't find anything else you like, you can just keep the coins, the reward points. So it turns out find out we have a lot of users have the reward points, and we think about how could we leverage the assets we have and provide something interesting to them. Luckily, I myself, I was from the insurance background, and then I was thinking about maybe coin. I always think about the coins and insurance has a linkage. So we partner with we start pitching the ideas how can leverage the power of one coin to with the insurance, and then we start thinking about the start pitching. Yeah, this is the campaign site. I think is Howard sharing? Yeah, so we partner with Zurich. We just back to last month, we launched this insurance app. It's like a micro insurance app. It's pretty interesting and pretty impactful, I think, because it's never ever happened in Asia before. So basically what you can do on the insurance is you can buy the insurance anytime you want by switching on the button of the of the app, like switching on your unplug. And if you don't need it, then just switch off. It's pretty on demand, pretty timely basis, very time sensitive as well. And also, we only charge you by what you want to insure. That's it, the sports insurance that Howard is sharing. You just need to tap into what kind of sports you want to insure, like say wake surfing, hiking, basketball, or baseball, whatever. And you just select the items, and you switch on, and you will be only insured for these sports. It's very customized. You don't have to pay extra premiums for what you want. And of course, how you're gonna purchase insurance? You can use Hayden's reward points to redeem it. So this is very something from coins and digitalized and to insurance. Even more interesting, we have something new to offer to the market is we optimize the claims process as well. So whenever you take a photo of your medical receipt, your invoice or payments, everything, upload to the app, and then we have a system to recognize all the details. Once it's matched with our medical records, and we will claim all the money to your bank account directly, with no hassles, everything. Pretty easy and very handy as well. So this is how things get changed, because we're always thinking about how actually make things more we just move on for what we have, whatever we have. So this is I think this is the product we just launched recently. And back to the COVID, actually, not only for insurance app, but also have, because of COVID, we have the something called Hey Park. That is another project that we partner with one of the local telecommunications firms. It is because of the COVID-19 that we have the food delivery services to help a lot of SMEs digitalize their product, digitalize their operation, things like that. Yeah, I think it's pretty much about my sharing. I think I can answer any questions that you guys have, but I think what I'm thinking to say is, COVID is what it is right now. So everybody needs to live in the new normal. And yeah, back to Albert.
Okay.
Yeah, Howard.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Howard and Eddie. So now let me open the floor to questions.
Welcome.
Any questions from the floor? Would you like to unmute yourself and share with us your question?
Hello?
Prashant?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So like it was explained presentation from both Howard and Eddie, and it was really awesome to know like the different activities they are doing. So my question is also for both of them, like on an average, how much it has to break even the initial investment for all these different kind of investment and start to like earning profit.
Okay.
And also, what has been the major challenges, like earning revenue streams and diversifying?
Okay. Okay. So, Albert, maybe I go first, and then Eddie.
Okay, sure.
You come after. I think for the first questions about break even period or how much time you need to achieve break even. I would say for my very first social enterprise, it took me 15 months, almost a year and 3 months to achieve break even point. But after that experience, I find out that the break even point actually took much longer than I thought, simply because of my lack of control of expenses. Whenever you started the business, you always want to, if I put it as an analogy of a basketball team, right? You always want to have a dream team. So the cost of the dream team is not cheap. Fast forward and everyone to be the best. So you end up paying more than what you need. So, and it ups your profit and will extend your break-even period. So I talk to myself, every time I start my business, I always start small and start slim. Right? I don't want to start with a dream team. I can have the dream at night, but not have a dream team in reality. So I started to make the team smaller to control the cost so that you can pace the break even much better. So that's the answer to the first question. And a little bit to respond to the challenges. I guess the present situation is quite challenging because of the COVID. Like some of my businesses are in the food business that we couldn't even operate at night. The new restrictions by the Hong Kong government is about stopping the dinner traffic. They ask everybody to go home after 6 p.m. So in a situation like this, what I have to respond to these challenges is to ask my staff to open earlier for breakfast. So you know the strategy, right? You cut the dinner and I start the breakfast. So it's always changing. So you are like a evolving kind of mindset that you have to respond to these kind of things all the time. So when the dinner is back, then I will talk to my staff, maybe that you can cut the breakfast. But if they like to serve breakfast continuously, then I'm more than happy, but I give them some choices. So Eddie, how about yours?
Oh, thank you. This is very good questions. So for social enterprises, I think you still end up with enterprises. You still need to be profit making. Not even for like $1 billion things, for like maximize the profits, but you still need to maintain a certain level of P&L. It's very important. Without that, you cannot be sustainable. I think a sustainability sometimes is much important than the social impact that you created before you really scaled up and can make an impact on socially oriented. For my cases, we never actually break even, I would say. But because it kind of depending on a lot of business models, everything. But in average, the breaking even line should be, I think, 5 years or 7 years, even longer. If you are thinking about, because there is certain definition about social enterprise, it's because you have to contributing some portion of your profits to allocating something that is creating social impact. That's what I heard, but maybe Albert can give more professional definition about it. Yeah, but so I think it's sometimes it's a really tricky questions. But some social enterprise doesn't make any at all because they keep receiving the money from the listed companies as a CSR sponsorship fee. It doesn't have to be really break even. It depends on your business models, everything. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have more questions coming in. In the interest of time, maybe I'll just read out the next question from Richie Sampson. So his question is, how have you dealt with the challenges in revenue generation or impact due to the COVID-19? So maybe the impact on revenue on...
Yes, I guess definitely a deep cut, as you said. As I said, some of the businesses benefit from this. For example, like Cook One Cook, they have higher revenues, more incomes due to that they stay home more and start to cook things at home. But again, like my restaurant business, then we have a really much a deep cut in revenues and incomes. You know, when we deal with these kind of things, as the same idea of a break-even point analysis, I got to cut the costs much deeper. For example, we cut the shift from 8 hours to 4 hours, and then we also changed the menu from 10 different items to 5 different items. And then we started to think about putting our menu to those delivery service so that we can drive some. But the takeaway is quite minimal because customers used to come over for the dine-in experience. So I must say that of course the government has given some subsidies and that helps. For example, they have some subsidies on the. We still hope that, you know, when the situation getting better. Interesting is I share with my partners and also with my colleagues is that when you are really busy, nothing can be done in the restaurant because you are busy every day, right? We are busy, so we spend more time in renovations, in improving the furniture and the. And actually, I spend more on.
I saw inspiration to aspiring scenes compared to a more developed economy like Hong Kong?
I have good experiences in working with the social enterprise from Philippines because of Albert introduction. If you remember, we have SK Global, and then also work with some other social enterprises from Philippines to Hong Kong. One thing I observed is, again, the background and the economic situation may be different, but one strategy will not change, or one idea will not change, is the way you find the opportunities around the people you want to work with. So it's not their choice to work with you, it's your choice to work with them with the common goal of finding their strengths. So in the case of SK Global, we have experienced getting to numerous entrepreneurs wanting to do agricultural businesses, then that is the opportunity. Then we can think about how we can ride on that agricultural businesses and create a better platform to ensure that they have more incomes. So I would say the new and the old, or the more capitalized or less capitalized, it's just a state of economic measurement. But what is important is about how you find that partnership or collaboration interesting with the people that you work with. So I always say that starting the business may be fun at the very beginning, but it will be a liability at the end, right? So when this becomes such a liability, you have to create some fun out of it. You know, fun means you have to be happy with the people that you work with, and the people that you, for example, that people can be investors. And once you have that formula for fun, I think that helps you to think of ideas that will help you to develop the idea your social enterprise needs to work on. So I don't have a specific idea on that, but that's the belief that I always have in my management of all these different social enterprises.
Thank you. Then there's a question from Swapan Das for Howard, but I think I can answer on Howard's behalf. So Howard started Dr. Mas after COVID-19, correct?
That's
yes.
Right.
Okay. Then we have a question from Santoshi Rana for Howard. How did you minimize your cost, or what choices did you have to make sure your expenses are decreased or to break even achieving break even faster. So it's about cost minimization, about bringing down expenses.
Yeah. This one, I would say, I always make my decision based on my management accounting. You know, you always receive the P&L from your accountant at the end of each month or at the middle of every month, right? But you better have a good accountant or at least a bookkeeper to give you the management account every month, so that you just, what I usually do is I put a percentage based on each income and expenses item versus my total sales, so that I know how much that expense accounts for the percentage of income that I receive every month from the customers. And that helps my decision or not, because whenever I did my cost reduction, I always look at the big percentage first versus the absolute values. Because if you don't look at the absolute value, it means nothing. But when you look at the percentage, certain items will get your attention. And that's the percentage, that's the first or two items that you can immediately work on and start to reduce the cost from there.
Thank you. Then we have two questions from my colleague, Tilo Lee. Okay, so Tilo is asking Howard, your businesses are in different industries. How can you handle these diversified businesses that require different sets of knowledge? So that's the first question. Second, did you get subsidies from the government for your Dr. Mask business?
Yes, the Dr. Mask business is not getting any subsidy from the government. At the very beginning, I thought about this scheme, but in my second thought, because the commitment of the volume is huge, because it's almost like 1 million masks to the government, and then you can supply to the market. So I turned that down, and then finally I just make the mask available to the market immediately. And for the first questions about different industries and different businesses, my only strategy is to meet more good friends, trust your partners, and I always give the driver seats to my partners or to the employees that I feel most comfortable trusting them. So that means I always take the best seat unless I need to be on the driver's seat. So I always give them the first priority to try, give them the chances to fail. And even though they fail, they come back and say, oh, Howard, why don't you do it at the beginning? I said, no, because I trust you, and that's the idea of having the collaborations and the partnership together. So I'm glad to say that I have lots of good partners in the past 12 or 14 years. But if you ask me whether I have failed business, yes, I have failed business, but I don't have failed friendship. So even though I failed the business, I don't lose the friendship, because we learn a lot from there. And we never argue about, you lost more and I lost more. I always argue about whether we learn something from there. And as long as you don't give up, there will be the second opportunity coming again. And then you have to evaluate whether you go or not, such as the mass business, right?
Thank you. Then we have a final question from Santoshi. That the question is for Eddie. How challenging has it been for you to change mindset or to sell your idea? How have you managed to build the customer base since it's a very new idea? So this question is for Eddie.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's a great question. I think it can relate it to every business. Whatever I do, I think from the customer perspective. As long as you give the best value to the customer, treat your business on their behalf, and then you will find the growth is not a problem, because you think about them, you care about them, because you're not going to get lucky to being sustainable your project or your company. So you got to be still. I think I would say it's very tough. Sometimes it's you don't have luck. As long as you choose is to start your own business, It's just spending a lot of time on your work, more than you spend a lot of time with your families, or it sometimes really cannot justify sometimes. I think the mentality is pretty important. A lot of people quit and they end up still doing other different things because it's nothing right or wrong. I think it's just different stage of life. And I respect that. I respect every entrepreneur. And I think everyone is an entrepreneur, actually. When you're working, when you're doing different things, I'm sure you met a lot of challenges. Even right now that everybody is facing COVID-19, I've been blocking Hong Kong for over 8 months. I cannot go back to home. I can't meet my parents. No, I mean, they cannot meet me, right? So it's a lot of challenges. Let's just face it, stay positive. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Eddie and Howard, for your very insightful sharing. Now I will do a very quick wrap up of the takeaways for me, at least personally. So what I heard this afternoon from Eddie as well as Howard when they talked about Cook One Cook and Hey Coins is, even when you are in the midst of a crisis, whether it's COVID-19 or the social unrest, you can still be able to find opportunities, new ideas, new opportunities. And then Howard also talked about importance of first inculcating social intelligence before we even talk to young people about artificial intelligence of social problems. Then, as social entrepreneurs, I think we also come in with a responsibility to fight against profiteering. So in your own way, you can actually set your prices at a lower level, and you can force the other competitors to also bring down their market prices. In the case of Bijas, it was interesting to note that Howard actually worked with 3 different groups of people with 3 different types of disabilities. What you need to do really is to identify the assets, the strengths of each disability group, and then you get them to work together. Okay, so maybe on that note, I will hand you over to Lisa, who will give us some closing remarks. Lisa, please.
Thank you very much, Albert. And that was a very interesting and informative webinar. And I think for those of you who were here during the past 7 webinars, this webinar is quite different because the country context is different. Yeah. Hong Kong, of course, is a developed market economy, which is different from the economies that we were actually, where the social enterprise sharing came from in the first 7 webinars. And I think this webinar shows how cross-cultural as well as cross-border and cross-context sharing can actually increase or enhance the discussions on how we can actually respond to COVID-19 and how social enterprises can play an important role in solving social problems. No? And in that respect, what became very, what struck me most during this webinar was not only the role of social enterprises in solving social problems of marginalized people of different, in a different country context, but also the role of technology was actually very much emphasized, especially that relationship between social intelligence, as Albert said, to artificial intelligence, and then the role of disrupting markets, so that you can actually influence the whole market, even if you're a small social enterprise, by introducing a mask, just like Dr. Mask did, which is actually priced much lower because that is the right thing to do. And also, what struck me also was the need for turning crisis into opportunities because of that in fact, the first social enterprise that was discussed earlier transformed, the crisis into an opportunity for selling more and providing more services to their stakeholders. And so with that, I'd like to thank Howard Ling for the very insightful sharing. I'd also like to thank Eddie Rong for your sharing with us this afternoon. I'd also like to thank Albert Teo, of course, for his moderation.
Thank you.
And with that, I think we are at the end of the webinar, but we'd also like to invite all of you to our next webinar on Tuesday next week at 4 p.m. the same time, when we will be featuring Alter Trade Foundation and the Negros Organic Fair Trade Association back in the Philippines, discussing how Alter Trade has actually empowered agrarian reform beneficiaries to become not only supplier communities, but actually members and leaders of a social enterprise themselves. No? And that webinar will take place at 4 p.m. next week. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you again in our next webinar next Tuesday. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.